How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we're going to talk about 2020 presidential hopeful Andrew Yang. His whole campaign has been based around the idea of UBI, that is Universal Basic Income. He wants to give every U.S. citizen $1,000 per month free cash. That is the basics of his plan. We'll get to the details in just a moment. Let's get back to him and talk about his background. Now, he is 44 years old, born in New York to two Taiwanese parents. So he's a first generation immigrant. Taiwan's kind of complicated. It's China, but it's not China. China calls that Chinese Taipei, but they call themselves Taiwan. It's a long history, so for now, I digress. The whole point is that he is a first generation immigrant. He has a little bit of money behind him, an accomplished career. He has been a CEO, entrepreneur. He has this nonprofit or some kind of organization. I forget what it's called, but I'll place that in the box if you want to know more about that. But basically, he wants to help people press forward. His whole thing that I've been watching him talk about all over the internet, especially on Joe Rogan's podcast, is automation. He is maybe inciting some fear about automation. One thing he was talking about are truckers in the Midwest. They're making like 50 grand a year, and he's fearing that their jobs are going to be lost due to automation because they're going to have self-driving trucks on the road very soon. I've already seen prototypes and whatnot, so he's thinking that their jobs are going to be taken away. Therefore, a UBI will be able to step in and help them with whatever they got going on. And that's a good segue because it ain't too much about him that's really important as far as I can tell. I don't see any other particular policies. So let's go straight to the whole thing about UBI. Let's start from the trucking example first. He wants to say that $1,000 per month will be able to shore up the income lost by a trucker making 50 grand a year. Now, I'm not Albert Einstein. I'm not a mathematician, but $1,000 per month on a 12-month year is $12,000. And that's maximum because the way he's talking about having UBI doled out is that it would not stack on top of welfare. So let's say you have all kind of programs right now. You got EBT, WIC, TANF, Section 8, maybe even Social Security, whatever you got. Your $1,000 per month would only apply to anything that does not add up to $1,000.
Here's a dividend of $1,000 a month. But if you're already getting more than $1,000 in stuff, we're not just going to stack it on top. We're just going to say you're guaranteed $1,000, and if you're already getting more, then this doesn't touch you. You can keep your current stuff. If you're getting $700 in food stamps and whatnot, then you can just get $300 on top. So the $3 trillion actually shrinks a lot very fast because of the fact that about half of Americans are already getting various income support from the government.
So it's kind of weird to me because if you get welfare benefits and you need more money to help with whatever you got going on, you're not really going to get that much more money because it'll cancel out your welfare benefits. But if you are not on welfare and you have a regular job, you'll get that money because you're not any kind of welfare benefit. So it'll actually make those that have money get more money. I could tell this was not very well thought out on his particular half. He was a CEO, whatever, and that's fine, but he may not understand economics that well. I'm not really sure what his background is as far as it relates to money and dealing with stuff like that. That's the first flaw I just saw right now just talking about it. I didn't even think about that before. But the second flaw would be when you give out just copious sums of cash with no kind of work behind it, just free money, that devalues money in general. You create inflation straight away by devaluing money. People that have saved all their lives, like senior citizens, their nest egg, so to speak, will depreciate immediately unless they put it into something that appreciates in value or that has retained its value at least, like a house or something like that. If they got a bunch of cash on them, that's going to automatically just decrease in value. So that's not a good thing. And beyond that, he's talking about the cost of it. Now, when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, he was saying that it wouldn't really be that much because Joe Rogan was like, look, this is going to cost like over $3 trillion per year. $3 trillion per year, not billion, trillion. This is a lot of money. Okay. Think about it like this. the United States total budget is like 4 trillion. 3 trillion, I mean, you're talking about 75% of the United States total budget. He's saying it's only going to be about 1.8 trillion, which is a lot of money every year to spend on this program. That is at least half of the United States total budget on top of what we have already spent. He's saying that the cost would be offset by things that we're not going to, have any expenses in anymore, such as homelessness, incarceration, stuff like that. He was floating the idea of paying people to stay out of jail. What he doesn't understand is that homeless people aren't necessarily homeless because they don't have the money. That's part of it, but that's not the only reason. Giving them more money won't really solve their homeless issue at all. First of all, when you go to places like California, they're already getting plenty of money. They're getting way beyond $1,000 per month, way beyond that. I read a study that says that some homeless people are getting services and benefits that range between 30 and 60 grand per year. 30 and 60, you're talking about almost like a salary for being homeless. So $1,000 per month, what is that going to do? And beyond that, let's look at why people are homeless to begin with. A lot of people have drug addiction, mental illness. Are you going to solve somebody's opioid addiction with $1,000 per month? Are you going to solve their mental health problem, their schizophrenia? Are you going to solve that with money? If that were the case, then it would already be solved because, like I said, they get plenty of money in benefits services as it stands right now. You have an idealized view of the world, but the reality is much different. He's talking about Amazon taking up a lot of retailers' jobs. He's saying that 30% of malls are going to be closing, et cetera, et cetera. So his ingenious idea is to put a VAT tax, that's a value added tax, which is really hated over there in the European Union right now. He wants to add that to companies like Amazon, not just Amazon, but other companies. What he doesn't understand is that all they're going to do is pass the increased costs down to the consumer. Amazon brings in about $240 billion per year in just gross revenue, but their net income was only about 10 to 11 billion. So 238 billion versus 11 billion. That's less than the 5% profit margin. It's very slim. So when you add these expenses on top of what they are paying already in just operating costs, they're not going to eat that. They're going to pass it to you and me. Amazon Prime has already been raised up. Like we can see an example of how the prices are going to raise when you look at what happened to Amazon Prime and other things. And when they raise minimum wage up, when they raised minimum wage $15, they got rid of certain things that were costing them money that put more cash into the employee's pocket, which kind of evened it out to where they're not really making that much more money at all. They're making pennies more, really, because they get rid of buy-in stock options. They get rid of certain things that would add value to an employee and that would actually give them more money on their check. And then they also raise the price of Amazon Prime by like $20 to $30 if you buy it on an annual. I think maybe like $5 or more, or right around that per month if you buy it month to month. So it's like you're making a lateral move at best. They're not just going to eat that price. And the same thing goes for Walmart. The same thing goes for Target, any other retailer. That's how the whole thing works. Same thing with restaurants. When you have high minimum wages, high expenses, all they're going to do is just pass that down to you. So when you look at people that are in poverty already who won't get much more money because they're already on a bunch of government programs, all you're going to do is make life that much more difficult for them because things are now more expensive. And people that have saved money, people that are elderly on fixed incomes, now you're going to reduce the value of their cash saved. And then back to the truckers, he's talking about truckers are going to be out of a job in a few years because of automated trucks. Well, right now there's a big time shortfall in truckers because I'm looking at these prototypes. You're talking about OTR or maybe even short range, but you got all kind of delivery, in city places where automated vehicles wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. You got to do multiple stops. There's a shortfall by like over 250,000 drivers. I think like 350,000 drivers that are short. They really want more truckers, and that's driving the salary range up because of the shortfall. It's a supply and demand issue. The automated trucks are not going to be able to make up for that, which is still not being able to be filled. So he's wrong about the trucking crisis as it exists right now. If it were a trucking crisis, then it would not be a demand for so many truckers. A lot of skilled trades are still needed that you can't do with a robot as of yet. Okay, you're talking about a lot of manual labor, flooring, roofing, tiling, brick masonry, HVAC, heating. All of those things are still required to have America function. Plumbing, all those things are still needed. So this whole doom and gloom about automation doesn't make any sense. And when you talk about automation, what do you really mean? Are you talking about tools that make human beings be able to do jobs easier, or totally automated with no human being interaction at all? Okay, he wants to talk about manufacturing, and he says that once you go to these factories in the Midwest, all you're going to see are cranes everywhere, no human beings in sight. Well, why is it that Foxconn has 1 million employees over in China making iPhones, iPads, iPods, MacBook Pros, et cetera, et cetera? Ain't no automation going on there. So let's just be real. A lot of the jobs have been offshore to China, where he is from. Taiwan, same thing. India, other places, same thing with garment manufacturing and everything else. A lot of jobs in manufacturing are still done every day. They're just not done here in the U.S. because of the expense, like what Andrew Yang is trying to impose more of. And the final thing, as I close here, when you have the government more involved with trying to add taxes on people, trying to regulate this, regulate that, trying to dictate what kind of money you get, and they got all kind of restrictions and whatnot, I'm not really for it. I'm for a smaller government. I'm not for a UBI. I'm not for a minimum wage. I'm not for all of these government assistance programs and handouts. I think they should be only reserved for the most needy of people. If you're indigent, if you're elderly, if you are truly disabled, that should be for you, not for just regular everyday people, and most certainly not UBI. And it won't make any sense. The expense of it does not really, it won't even play out. All it will do is just make people have less money in their pocket, because you're going to try to subsidize that 1.8 trillion every year by adding expense onto companies as they are right now. When you add expense to a company, all you do is just drive the price of everyday goods and services through the roof. When you reduce expenses, everything else reduces as well, because let's not forget, companies compete with each other to have dominance in the market. So if everybody gets a tax cut, it doesn't make any sense to keep your prices high, because the company over here will reduce their prices. That's the whole thing. They're trying to compete on price. They're trying to compete on expediency. They're trying to compete on quality, customer service. All those things make a business. Andrew Yang may have been the CEO. I'm not really sure what he was the CEO of. Dog Catching Incorporated, How to Burn Money Incorporated. I'm not really sure, but for now, I digress. So what do you think? Do you think that the Andrew Yang plan, $1,000 per month UBI, will actually work? If you think that way, please explain to me why. Do you think that the program was very well thought out? I think not, because how are you going to say this is going to help those that have lost their job and all this, that, and the third? Meanwhile, you're also saying at the same time that it will not stack on top of welfare benefits. How does that make any sense? So if I'm not on welfare, I get more UBI than somebody that is. That seems kind of backwards if you're trying to help those that are indigent or just don't have any money or whatever the case may be. It don't make too much sense. Then you're going to raise taxes on top of that. I mean, I'm not really seeing the logical thought process here, but I could go on for a long time. I want to hear you guys' thoughts about UBI, Andrew Yang, and my assertion of him and it, and whatever else you got to say, whatever your comments are. Please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.